Why we provide different internet solutions for your different needs. SLT Fiber, 4G and ADSL. SLT Broadband, just the way you want it.
Tragedy in Vennapur. A motor accident claims the lives of 6 persons. Italian pistol found. The Constitution debate. Opposition leader says that the content within the proposed Constitution is only known to few. Clearing the streets. Action to be taken against homeless persons begging in Colombo.
We instruct them to leave the place, but if they are not obeying with the instructions given by police, we are taking action.
Shocking exit. Defending champion and world number 3 Roger Federer defeated by Tsitsipas at the Australian Open. All this and much more on First at 9 tonight on Sunday the 20th of January 2019.
Smart Android තාක්ෂණයෙන් එන සිංග විස්ටා TV එකක් මිලදී ගන්නා ඔබට හිත පිරෙන්න වාසි රැසක් ඕනෑම සිංග ප්‍රදර්ශනාගාරයකින්.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to First at 9 and Ada Derana 24. I'm Katharina Chang. On to our top story tonight. Now, early this morning, a motor accident claimed the lives of 6 persons in Vennapur. It was reported that the vehicle carrying 9 persons collided with a lorry at the Nainamadima bridge. The surviving victims are currently receiving treatment at the Chilau General Hospital and the Maravilla Base Hospital.
A car carrying 9 persons collided with a lorry at the Nainamadima bridge in Vennapur along the Colombo-Chilau road today. The tragic incident occurred between 2:30 and 3 this morning when the speeding car collided with the lorry transporting fish. 6 out of 9 individuals lost their lives on the spot. The group travelling in the car were returning from a wedding held in Waikal at Vennapur. It was reported that residents in the area had recovered the bodies and saved those who were trapped inside the car with much difficulty.
මෙතන සද්දයක් ඇහුණා උකුරන වගේ පට ගාලා ඊට පස්සේ අපි එළියට බහලා බලලා ඇක්සිඩන්ට් එක වෙලා ඉවරයි ඊට පස්සේ ඉතින් කට්ටිය ඇවිල්ලා ඇතුලේ හිර වෙලා ඉන්න ගන්න ගොඩාක් try කරා ඉතින් අන්තිමටම පැය එකමාරක් විතර ඔට්ටු වුණා පස්සේ අර ක්‍රේන් එකක් ගෙනල්ලා තමයි හිර වෙලා හිටියා පිටිපස්සේ හිටපු එකන පැන ගත්තා ටක් ගලයව ගත්තා හිර වෙලා හිටුණා ඉතින් ටිකක් වෙලා ගියා ගන්න.
With the help of residents, all 9 individuals were admitted to the General Hospital in Chilau as well as the Maravilla Base Hospital. It was confirmed, however, that 6 persons had passed away during the collision. The 2 remaining victims who survived the incident were later transferred to the National Hospital in Colombo from Chilau General Hospital. Among those who lost their lives during the accident was 36-year-old Pradeep Chandana Law, 26-year-old Janita Roshan Piris, 34-year-old Suranga Fernando, 34-year-old Vikramasinghe Bandara, 24-year-old Manoj Anuruddha as well as 32-year-old Rohana Senaviratna. The remains of 4 persons are currently kept in the Maravilla Base Hospital, while the remains of the other 2 victims are at the Chilau General Hospital. Police officials of the Vennapur police station stated that remains of the deceased will be handed over to the relatives following the autopsy. Meanwhile, police had also recovered a 8mm pistol from within the car which is manufactured in Italy. Police have launched an investigation into who possessed the firearms and for what purpose.
Now, Sri Lanka police are intent on putting an end to mendicancy, especially in the Western province. It is its latest effort. The police are targeting Colombo with all those who are involved in beggary as a business being given a period of a week to vacate their preferred locations for begging, under the warning of legal action on anyone who fails to do so. The authorities, however, are clear in their plans, saying genuinely homeless people will not be brought to book. but those who have turned to mendicancy as a business will be targeted. Chief of the Traffic Police Deputy Inspector General Ajit Rohana says that the decision was made to curtail accidents and traffic congestion. But this isn't the first time the government has touted the idea of ridding the Western province of its street dwellers looking for handouts who exploit begging under the guise of being homeless. Minister of Megapolis and Western Development Party Champika Ranawaka made several statements in the past 2 years that begging should be prohibited within the Colombo city limits.
According to a survey conducted by Sri Lanka Police, beggars, who also include some of the genuinely homeless people positioning themselves at traffic lights, are responsible for causing traffic congestion and accidents. The police have uncovered that the number of people begging in Colombo under the guise of being homeless actually outnumber those who are genuinely homeless.
In the recent past, we have conducted a survey, especially in respect of the accidents happen in Colombo city. That survey revealed that the beggars who are at the points of signal lights, they cause many problems in respect of vehicle movements and motorists. At junctions, no one should be begging at the point where the color lights are situated. They are annoyance to general public and the vehicle movements and the motorists. So therefore, we are compelled to take action in order to curtail accidents, and apart from that, in order to curtail traffic congestion. We are not dealing with the real beggars. Real beggars are accepted. We have identified some places, especially Urgudavatta Junction, Dematagoda, Boralla Kanatta Junction, Dickman Road Junction, and other various junctions in Colombo city. So therefore, I have instructed traffic police to conduct operations in order to remove them. We respect the rights of people. Initially, we instruct them to leave the place, but if they are not obeying with the instructions given by police, we are taking action. In terms of the provisions of penal code, there is an offence called wrongful restraint, and in addition to that, there are offences in the Thoroughfare Act, so they will be dealt with both laws.
The proposed constitution is one of the most debated topics of the country at the moment. It is in this backdrop that opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa made an accusation against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and TNA parliamentarian M.A. Sumandiran today. Rajapaksa said that it is only the Premier and TNA MP who seems to know what exactly has been included in the new constitution.
ව්‍යවස්ථාවට කාරණා ඉතින් යාළුවනේ කිව්වේ රනිලුයි ස්වන්දිරම් මහත්තයයි තමයි දන්නේ අපි අනන් දන්නේ නෑ මොකද්ද. මොකද ඒ දින රහසිගතව කතාව තීන්දුව ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න තමයි හදන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි ඒකට ඉඩ දෙන්නේ නෑ. දෙපළ ජනතාවගේ අයිතිවාසිකම් වෙනුවෙන් ඔබතුමාලා කොහොමද අපි පෙනී සිටිනවා පැහැදිලිව.
Meanwhile, during a religious event held in Galpatha Rajama Vihara temple in Horana today, the opposition leader also raised concerns about underworld activities.
We're now afraid to travel along roads at certain times. Recently, there was a shooting incident in Kudavel area where 4 people were killed. Among them were one of the innocent parliamentary officers who had gone to buy some fish. The underworld seems to be ruling everywhere now. Drug smuggling have increased. There were incidents when drugs have been found from Satosa storerooms. People have doubts as to whether these confiscated drugs are being destroyed as said or being sold back to the local and foreign black markets.
Now on to some other local news now. Keeping on the subject, there are widespread views to tune that arrival of a new constitution will threaten the unitary status of the country. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday explicitly said that the proposed new document will not be a divisive one. Much of the concerns regarding the new constitution comes from the power of devolution to provincial councils along with police powers, which in turn lead for some say that it would be the start of a federal state. Reciting from the same page as the Prime Minister, Minister Ranjith Madhu Bandara today emphasised that the proposed constitution will in fact ensure the unitary status of Sri Lanka despite the surrounding conjecture.
We're going to bring in a new constitution, but we will protect the unitary status of the country and ensure the priority given to Buddhism. We could divide the money if we can't divide the power. Muslim community never say that the country must be divided, so there's no point trying to drag this talk about the constitution. And now they're after me, saying that I crossed over to the United National Party, but I still haven't crossed over. When President Sirisena took office, he was apparently never in the UNP, so it's good for him, but not for us.
And with that, we cross over to a short commercial break. Stay tuned for more local news. Welcome back to the news. A person was shot and injured near Jindupitia Street in Colombo this evening. According to police, individuals who had arrived on a motorcycle had fired shots and fled the scene. The injured is a 34-year-old male who had been travelling in a three-wheeler at the time of the incident. The injured person has been admitted to the Colombo National Hospital for further treatment. Now, further investigations are underway to ascertain who the incident is behind. With that, let's now take a look at some other local stories making news across Sri Lanka. The 46th Janapati Sadaham Yatra Dhamma sermon was held under patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena today. The sermon was held at historical Kitsirimewan Rajamahaviharaya in Kalaniya this morning. A group of army officers rescued a turtle which was found entangled in a fishing net along the coastal belt in Kiran Batiklo. The rescued turtle, which sustained injuries to its front flippers, was later handed over to the Ampara Wildlife Health Management Division for treatment. Meanwhile, a suspect travelling from Singapore to Sri Lanka was arrested for smuggling 500,000 rupees worth of ornamental fish, tortoises and exotic species at the Katunayake International Airport this morning. 3 persons have been arrested by custom officials attached to the Bandaranayake International Airport over an attempt to smuggle in gold jewellery. The officers have detected semi-finished gold jewellery weighing 834 grams worth over 4.5 million rupees on the suspects who had been arriving from Singapore. Following a formal customs inquiry, the gold jewellery was declared forfeit and a penalty of 30,000 rupees was imposed on the suspects. During a routine patrol, naval personnel attached to the Northern Naval Command and Coast Guard fast attack craft intercepted 2 suspicious dinghies plying in northern seas. 4 persons were later taken into naval custody after having identified them as persons attempting to immigrate into the island from India. The suspect along with their dinghies were handed over to the Kankasanture police for further investigation. 3 persons suspected to be members of an underworld crime gang have been arrested in Panipiti and Navala areas. Police have discovered 1 kilogram and 449 grams of heroin on the arrested suspects. The suspects were arrested by Nugegoda Divisional Crimes Unit while they had been riding on a motorbike at Kalagoda, Panipitiya and Valipara in Navala. The arrestees have been identified as members of underworld member Markandre Madusha's gang. Minister of Megapolis and Western Development, partly Champika Ranawaka, alleges that the former government gave land from the port city to foreign countries on lease while giving the green light to the project without conducting necessary environmental assessments. The project was briefly halted when the government of good governance came to power in 2015, with both matters mentioned by the minister being scrutinized.
We were faced with so many problems when we executed the plan to build a port city. How many countries label this as a colony of the international community? People who talk about patriotism have given land from the port city on lease for foreign countries. No environmental assessments were carried out. Nothing was done in a legal backdrop. Have anyone pointed a finger at us today? No environmentalist, no government blames us. Every single one of them accepts that we constructed it in line with standards and in an environmentally friendly manner.
Speaking on the economic reform program with the IMF, Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, says that whether there is a program or not, Sri Lanka is in need of a revenue enhancement-based fiscal consolidation program and to ensure that the country's net international reserve is replenished. Governor Kumaraswamy also called for the need to create investor confidence to encourage foreign direct investment, to build exports, to ensure that the country receives sufficient foreign exchange earnings to Sri Lanka's debt.
Arguably the 2 key components of the Extended Fund Facility Program are 1, revenue enhancement based fiscal consolidation, and two, and building net international reserves. Now, what we must remember is that whether or not there is an IMF program, these are things we have to do for ourselves. You know, people keep saying that the IMF is imposing this on us and imposing that on us. We have to have a revenue enhancement-based fiscal consolidation program. You saw the graph. We have to build up our net international reserve. We allowed our debt to pile up, and we allowed exports to come down. It's okay if you borrow money and you put it into projects that go into developing tradables, that develop exports or import competing goods and services, i.e. you earn or save foreign exchange. But instead, we built up this commercial debt and put it into non-tradables. And the rates of return on those projects were also extremely low. You listen to the rhetoric and the narrative in Sri Lanka and you think that the IMF goes around picking on countries. Well, actually, we went there because we got ourselves into a mess. I don't think we have anybody but ourselves to blame. And, you know, if you get into the claws of the IMF because you've mismanaged things. So we have to manage things better. And let me also say this. Now that we've got ourselves into the position we have got, in terms of our external debt dynamics, in terms of the tremendous reliance we have, in terms of investor confidence, particularly foreign investor confidence, we need them to buy our bonds to finance external financing needs. We need them to come in with FDI to build up our exports so that we can have sufficient foreign exchange earnings to service our debts and to support the level of imports that we need. So foreign investor confidence is extremely important for us. Having got ourselves into the twin deficit category, if you don't have the IMF good housekeeping seal, we are going to have serious difficulty in getting the financing that we need. So we have to do these reforms for ourselves, but right now we have got ourselves into a position where an IMF program is necessary. And the IMF programs doesn't come without conditionality, because they give us uncollateralized money. And essentially what they do is they ask for reforms which ensures sufficient credit worthiness to pay back the money we borrow from them. That is basically the equation.
In the meantime, speaking on the topic of globalization, Professor Sirimal Aberatna of the University of Colombo says that if Sri Lanka is to obtain the full benefit of globalization, the country must have policy reforms and institutional changes. He expressed these views at an event held recently.
Globalization is, from a country perspective, an integration into the global economy, the formation of a global economy. Partly, it's also a deliberate effort through policy reforms and institutional changes. I don't mean that there is a 50-50 chance or probability to be a winner or to be a loser. It's a choice. To be a winner or a loser is a choice. Globalization offers opportunities. If we set the mechanisms to grab those opportunities and to exploit those opportunities and to benefit from those opportunities, we will be winners. One of the major effects of globalization has been the rise of Asia. First, it was East Asia. Now it has shifted to South Asia also over the last 25, 30 years or so. Rise of Asia has a flip side. It is, though we usually analyze this as a unique outcome of the policy reform process, the liberalization process in developing countries, in Asian countries. It has a flip side. It is the ultimate, the convergence of many divergent forces which were happening all around the world as part of the globalization. The world trade in goods and services both, exports, 25 years later, it has increased more than 4 times, about $20 trillion. Last few years, we have seen, now it is, the South Asia is the fastest growing region. But I am still wondering why Sri Lanka is not part of that growth process. Sri Lanka is yet to be part of that growth process.
It is reported that China's economic growth cooled to its slowest in 28 years in 2018 amid weakening domestic demand and bruising US tariffs, adding pressure on Beijing to roll out more support measures to avert a sharp slowdown. According to Reuters, this is expected to be announced tomorrow when it releases its fourth quarter and 2018 GDP data tomorrow, along with last month's factory output, retail sales and fixed asset investment. Growing signs of weakness in China, which has generated nearly a third of global growth in the past decade, are stoking worries about risk to the world economy and are weighing on profits for firms ranging from Apple to big car makers. Analysts polled by Reuters expect the world's second largest economy to have grown 6.4% in the October-December quarter from a year earlier, slowing from the previous quarter's 6.5% pace and matching levels last seen in early 2009 during the global financial crisis. Now that could pull 2018 gross domestic product growth to 6.6%, the lowest since 1990 and down from a revised 6.8% in 2017. The market analysts believe that bearish market sentiments is to remain in the equity market over the course of the week as retail investors are following a wait-and-see approach. During the week, the all-share price index gained 0.3% while the S&P 20 increased by 1%. We now have Hiruni Pereira from First Capital Holdings with the market forecast.
In the bond market, primary auctions held last week gave a positive signal, triggering buying interest from both foreign and local counterparties. We expect this trend to continue in the next week as well. In the equity market, we expect bearish sentiment to remain as retail investors are following a wait-and-see approach, seeking a trigger point to reactivate.
In a bid to end the month-long partial government shutdown, U.S. President Donald Trump proposed an immigration deal yesterday after House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other leading Democrats had already said they rejected the plan. In a speech from the White House, Trump offered to extend support for legislation to protect young undocumented immigrants known as Dreamers, as well as holders of temporary protected status.
US President Donald Trump has set out new plans on his Mexican Wall project to try to end a partial government shutdown lasting more than 4 weeks. He, however, stuck to his demand that $5.7 billion for this year to fund a US-Mexico border wall be part of any bill to fully reopen the government, an ultimatum Democrats oppose. One of his compromises was on Dreamers who entered the US illegally when young.
The plan includes $5.7 billion for a strategic deployment of physical barriers or a wall. There are 2 more elements to my plan. Number 1 is 3 years of legislative relief for 700,000 DACA recipients brought here unlawfully by their parents at a young age many years ago. This extension will give them access to work permits, Social Security numbers, and protection from deportation. Secondly, our proposal provides a 3-year extension of temporary protected status, or TPS. This means 300,000 immigrants whose protected status is facing expiration will now have 3 more years of certainty so that Congress can work on a larger immigration deal, which everybody wants, Republicans and Democrats.
Shortly before Trump spoke, the top U.S. Democrat and Speaker of House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi in a statement said the offer was unacceptable and did not represent a good faith effort to restore certainty to people's lives. She said the president's offer was unlikely to gain the votes needed to pass the House or Senate.
On to some of the developments with regard to the much scrutinized Brexit deal now. A group of cross-party parliamentarians will present a bill tomorrow proposing that the UK extends its negotiation with the European Union if the Parliament does not approve a withdrawal agreement. The new bill would give Prime Minister Theresa May until 26th of February to get the parliamentary approval for a deal. If the government fails to do that, the bill would allow Parliament to vote on an extension to Article 50, which would delay Brexit and could prevent the UK leaving the EU without a deal. In 2017, MPs voted in favour of invoking Article 50, which allows the UK to leave the EU. Downing Street said it was vital MPs delivered on the referendum result. MPs have already rejected Theresa May's withdrawal agreement once by 432 votes to 202. And on to some other international news now. The death toll from the devastating pipeline explosion in central Mexico has now increased to 73, with scores more injured. Forensic experts filled body bags with charred human remains in the field where the explosion occurred on Friday, in one of the deadliest incidents to hit Mexico's troubled oil infrastructure in years.
Dozens were killed after a pipeline ruptured by suspected fuel thieves exploded in central Mexico as President Andrés Manuel López Obrador defended the army despite its failure to clear the site before the blast. One witness described how an almost festive atmosphere among hundreds of local residents filling containers with spilled fuel turned to horror as the blast scattered the crowd in all directions, incinerating clothing and inflicting severe burns. A number of people at the scene told that local shortages in gasoline supply since López Obrador launched a drive to stamp out fuel theft had encouraged the rush to the gushing pipeline. Fuel theft, known as moonshining, is rampant in some Mexican communities, which cost the country about $3 billion last year. President López Obrador, who took office in December, has launched a major crackdown with thousands of Marines being deployed to guard pipelines, some of which have been shut down altogether in places.
Well, we have all the updates from the Australian Open, but before that we will go on to a short commercial break. Please stay tuned for more. Well, today came the biggest shock of the Australian Open so far, as defending champion and world number 3 Roger Federer was defeated by 20-year-old Stefanos Tsitsipas. Meanwhile, earlier in the day, Rafael Nadal routed Thomas Berdych in a centre court masterclass to charge into the quarterfinals of the Australian Open today. In the women's draw, former world number 1 Maria Sharapova's dream of another Grand Slam was shattered as she was defeated by home favourite Ashley Barty. Meanwhile, in yesterday's match, reigning French Open champion Simona Halep defeated multiple Grand Slam winner Venus Williams in straight sets. There were also wins for Alexander Zverev and Francis Tiafoe of the United States today.
Stefanos Tsitsipas produced the biggest win of his career to oust defending Australian Open champion Roger Federer and reach a Grand Slam quarter-final for the first time in his career. The 20-year-old 14th seed edged a tense, at times tetchy affair against the 20-time Grand Slam champion and will face Roberto Bautista Agut for a place in the semi-finals.
Stefanos Tsitsipas, sensational, has been dethroned, and Tsitsipas is in disbelief. Welcome to the big time, Steph.
Second seed Rafael Nadal swept aside former Wimbledon finalist Thomas Berdych 6-0, 6-1, 7-6 to reach the Australian Open quarterfinals without dropping a set. The 2009 champion was relentless at Rod Laver Arena, claiming the first 2 sets in an astonishing 51 minutes and firing 32 winners past the hapless Czech to reach the last 8 at Melbourne Park for the 11th time. Francis Tiafoe celebrated his 21st birthday by reaching the Australian Open quarterfinals with a 7-5, 7-6, 6-7, 7-5 victory over former semi-finalist Grigor Dimitrov, setting up to a last 8 clash with world number 2 Rafael Nadal.
Yeah, right.
Alexander Zverev in the meantime ended the charmed run of Australian wildcard Alex Bolt, defeating him 6-3, 6-3, 6-2 in the Australian Open third round. Home favourite Ashley Barty won 9 games in a row to inspire a comeback against Maria Sharapova and book her place in the Australian Open quarter-finals. Having lost the first set, Barty broke twice in the second and went on to win 4-6, 6-1, 6-2 to reach the last 8 of a Grand Slam for the first time. In yesterday's match, top seed Simona Halep had the odds stacked against her ahead of the Australian Open, but the Romanian proved her title credentials with a breezy 6-2, 6-3 third-round win over multiple Grand Slam winner Venus Williams. With the win, Halep will face Serena Williams in a highly anticipated Australian Open fourth-round match.
And with that, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.